Daily routine. Do now. The table shows the amount of time 4 students practiced the trumpet one day. The trumpet practice times were: Cole practice 1 2/3 of an hour, Gus practice 1 1/2 hour, Ryan practice 1 1/4 of an hour, and Jacob practiced 1 7/12 of an hour. Which list shows the name of students in order from least amount of practice time to the greatest amount of practice time? Let's get started. Okay, the first thing we'll talk about is that this lesson will be covering TEKS 6-2D. Students should know how to compare and order 2 decimals to the thousand place. Now let's do our annotations, which is our cube strategy. The first thing we want to do is circle key numbers in units. The first thing I will circle is the letter or the word 4. Next, I would underline the question. Which list shows the number of students in order from least amount of practice to the greatest amount of practice time? The next thing I would want to do is box in math clue words. First, I will box in least, then I will box in greatest. Now, I want to ask myself a question. How do I convert a fraction to a decimal? I convert a fraction to a decimal by using the numerator and my dividends and the denominator and my divisor. Basically, the denominator will be on the outside of the box and the numerator will be on the inside. Now, let's make a conversion table. Let's convert all of the fractions that we have into decimals. 1 2/3 is equivalent to 1.66. 1 1/2 is converted to 1.5. 1 1/4 is converted to 1.25, and 1 7/12 is converted to 1.58. Now let's use a number line to evaluate which one will be least to greatest. So when we look at it, we see that 1/2 on the number line is in the middle, the midpoint. 2/3 is beyond the midpoint. 1/4 is before the midpoint. And 7/12 is slightly in front of the midpoint. Now, let's think about some of the common fractions and decimal equivalents that we already know. So when we look on here, we should have been able to tell that 1/4 is equivalent to 25 because that's a fraction that we should be able to recognize. Also, we could have saved time by knowing that 1/2 is equivalent to 50%, as well as 2/3 is equivalent to 66.6%. Now, let's evaluate and compare our data, and we see that Ryan is the least and Cole is the greatest. And when we look at our answer choices, we'll see that you should have chose answer choice C. Now, the misconception is that some students may believe that every fraction relates to a different number instead of realizing that the equivalent fraction relates to the same relative amount. So we have to understand that 1/5 that 1/2 is equivalent to 2/4. and 2/4 is equivalent to 3/6, and 3/6 is equivalent to 5/10. So even though the fractions change, the relative amount is always will be the same.